Hi, I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna. We're the hosts of the New Life Perspectives radio show.
We're also the creators of the Cognomovement system, where we help you rewire your nervous system so you can rewire your reality.
Join us each week for great conversations, amazing guests, and cutting-edge information on health, consciousness, and the keys to transformation.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today we have a really special episode. It's just Bill and I here together. Hey Bill.
Hey.
And we want to share about how it is possible to change the world, how singular decisions, intentions even, surrender, if you will, can create something that shouldn't exist, that actually changes the lives of thousands of people, maybe even saves lives, but realistically just should not have happened. So Bill and I are going to share what was happening in our lives and how we actually came together to create Cognomovement, because Bill and I should not know each other. I live in Southern Oregon. Bill lives in San Diego. And we had completely different lives. We don't know anyone in common. And yet something happened that allowed us to meet up and allowed us to join forces to create a Cognomovement, which we really both believe was supposed to happen. And it's the reason that we came to the planet to do this thing. So Bill, join the conversation. This is an interesting thing. We get asked this question all the time, right? How do you guys even know each other?
Well, that's true. You know, you got absolutely no business knowing each other. And it's kind of a strange story that when I reach back in time, it occurred to the both of us how many things had to come together for this to actually happen. And it really should not have happened at all. I was, I guess there was a big part of me that was in resistance to it. I didn't really know it or realize it, but a tug of war was going on inside of me, and the pushing it away was definitely very much active. So, yeah.
It's true. And there's so many pieces that had to come together. So I'll tell you guys what spurred this conversation. We're preparing to be the keynote speakers at the International Mandela Effect Conference. And so we've been asked to tell our story, how we met, and we have told it many times, but we kind of skim over because it feels like a long story. So we do know that there is some kind of a timeline shift, maybe a Mandela effect, things that had to click into place for us to even originally meet each other. And so what we realize is that there's a lead up to this moment in time for both of us that led to us meeting in this creation. And it starts with some bit of struggle. So tell everybody what you were doing in the year or months before we met, and how you got to the point in time that we got to know each other and began working together.
Well, the story really begins in about 2008 or so, when I went through kind of a big life change. I had no particular interest in the whole aspect of either spirituality, healing, anything like that. I found myself completely disinterested. And there was a very abrupt, what I would call awakening. that happened around that time. I detailed it in the book, The Only Lesson, which it came out in about 2011. The Only Lesson basically was kind of my journey to understanding the only lesson we're here to learn is to love without strings attached. And there were many components to that. The publishing of that book, I was interested in kind of getting that message out there, and someone knew Regina Meredith and ended up getting the book to her. And at that time, she had something called the Conscious Media Network. And she interviewed basically people that were in the consciousness space of all kinds. And I ended up going on her show, and I was very. Have you watched the interview? I would call myself tense. I was somewhat kind of, I would call it reluctant, very cautious around media. But Regina was so kind and nice and gentle, through the process. My very first interview like that. And I really liked her, and the messaging that she was putting out to the world. So fast forward, I was doing kind of, I don't know what you would call it, but helping people, maybe you'd call it healing work or helping people. I would spend every Saturday full-time working with whoever came in the door on whatever issue that they happen to have. And I would work with them and get them to the next point in life. And I was doing that for free. I didn't have a website, didn't have anything. I just was basically helping people. And I enjoyed it so much. And I had this perfect vehicle. There was a retreat house where I didn't have to advertise. I didn't have to do anything. I just sit in a room. People come in, I work with them, and they leave, and then I go home. And it was awesome, energizing and fun. And during the process, I was doing a lot of studying of different modalities and kind of, I would say, becoming educated. Anyway, in the process of becoming educated, I ran across something that was absolutely phenomenal. I had seen Bert Goldman do a healing with water. He basically was standing in front of a full crowd, an audience that he asked, "Hey, does anybody have pain?" And a woman with fibromyalgia came up and said, "Well, I've had fibromyalgia for, whatever, 25 years or something like that." And the level of pain was something like an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. And he just had a bottle of water. And he's like, he was saying, I just see her as perfect, in this bottle of water. And then he gave her the water and had her drink it and asked her to walk around a little bit. And, the pain dropped in half or more. And then she drink another swig and walk around, and boom, the pain was gone. And I was like, that is ridiculous. Anyway, it was a 3-day seminar, and I got the chance over and over to kind of, hey, what's up? Is that real? Is what's going on? Day 2, day 3. Hey, how you feeling? I said, yeah, there's no pain. She said, it's surreal. And anyway, there was a bunch of other kind of things that came in with that understanding and studying with Bert. And I got to understand it all better. And anyway, I ended up contacting Regina Meredith. This is, I don't know, maybe 2014 or so. And Regina, we got to get this out to the world. There's this ability, this with intention, you can do a healing on somebody, and you can do it very quickly and easily with water and your intention. And this is how it works. And I'd like to, come on your show and tell everybody. And turns out that she had sold off, to Gaia. And she was like, well, I'm not in charge anymore. It's Gaia. But I'll take this idea and I'll see if they'll have you on. I'm not sure because, usually, they like to have people that are a little bit more well known. Nobody really knows you or anything, but I think this is really powerful, and I have my own personal experience to validate it.
Okay, so let's back up just a little bit, because when we talked about this before, you were talking about there was a little bit of suffering going on. You were concerned about coming forward with this kind of information, because before you'd been involved in business, and other things, like you weren't known amongst your family or your friends or, business people for being a healer. You were hiding a little bit, at your friend's retreat center, healing people. So what happened that you got the idea to have the intention, I'm going to create some momentum, I'm going to get this out to Regina? Like, what gave you the courage? I think that's what people probably want to know, because I think a lot of people they know they have a mission, they know there's a purpose, but they just can't get their feet under them to get going. So what was that momentum, what the intention, or that created the momentum?
I really felt compelled. I felt compelled to call her. It wasn't, my own personal will. I was compelled, is like, this is so powerful that the world's got to know about it. But at the same time, 100% conflicted. Like, I don't want to be seen. This is not about me. This is about empowering humanity, to opening the door of realization that you're powerful enough to actually positively impact another and do a healing. And anybody can do it. So I literally, when I got on the phone with Regina, I was like, hey, Regina, I don't have a book. I don't have a course. I don't have a website. I don't have anything. And all I want to do is just share this message and get off the air. And that's it. That's it. I'm going to 100% show people how to do this and give them everything they need to do it. And away they go. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll back up and I'll share my side of it to get to the point of that interview. So I think I've shared this with everyone before, but I was sort of born this way. I'm that person that everyone asked questions that I had no business knowing, even as a small child. 5 years old, I remember thinking, why are they asking me this question? Why should I know this? And then I kind of did. And I was that person that everyone would ask advice to, even kids at school, even often adults. And so I sort of knew that my role was as some kind of a healer. And yet I was born into a family that wasn't necessarily in alignment with that, except for that my mom was a really powerful healer. She was ill and had gone to naturopaths and chiropractors and learned about natural medicine. So I learned about natural medicine from as early as I can remember as well, herbs and homeopathic and food. And so I had this foundation of a way that healing worked. And actually it's still a part of my life today. But I also sort of knew it wasn't the path for me. I considered being a naturopath at one point. and just never did that. And there was this suffering that went on. I know I'm supposed to be on purpose here. I know I have a mission. I know I came to this planet for a very specific reason, because I never felt like I should be here. I never felt like I fit into anything that was going on. I'm like, what in the world? Who made this decision that I ended up here? Well, I knew I had something to do, but I just couldn't quite get there. So like you, I went into business. You know, I had a big channel on YouTube and a completely different topic. I did my first business I started, I was literally 14. So I'd been involved in businesses as an entrepreneur many, many times, avoiding becoming a healer in really, truly, you know, avoiding like announcing, here's what I'm doing with my life. So many, many things happened. You know, we lost a $10 million a year business. You know, that was a spiral. And I did end up going to learn neuro-linguistic programming. And that was the first thing that started creating momentum for me. It was about brain remapping, very specifically brain remapping. And my parents had gotten sick at the time, both with brain illnesses, which spurred me to study and study and study and learn about neurological responses in every way that I could. So I decided to be an NLP practitioner after I had gotten my master's certificate in that. And I had begun treating people as well. But there was a big intention point here, a big shift that I think created the shift in my reality. And it was this. I decided that I needed to be around people who had a similar mindset, who wanted to talk about healing, you know, who frankly wanted to talk about UFOs, who wanted to talk about ancient history, who wanted to talk about what else was possible and not just talk about like all of their friends' problems at work and gossip about this one and the trouble with this and the trouble with that. I think I'd gotten to a breaking point where my mind just couldn't handle it anymore. Just couldn't stand the inane conversation. So I made a very specific intention. I remember the day I did it because I had learned about intention and how you could manifest things, right? So I decided I'm putting out the intention in the world that I'm going to meet with people that could have these deep conversations just for the sake of conversation, that wanted to talk about at the time what I considered weird stuff, just to talk about it. You know, not to convince anybody, not to convert anybody, but literally just to have the conversation. So what happened next was I went to an event in Phoenix, Arizona, and there was one of the speakers that I liked. It was Denise Lynn, but I never went to these things by myself. And I went, and I'm like, what am I doing here? But in the back of my mind, I knew I would meet someone, and it was a pivotal person. It was my friend, Carmela Lamana, who also is a healer and a teacher. And she had come to that event with the exact same intention. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm probably going to meet someone that'll change my life. She's Italian, I'm Italian. We were invited to a dinner together and boom, there it happened, right? So now I have my person. And she lives in Canada. I live in Oregon. And we started FaceTiming each other and having these great, 4-hour conversations. Great. The next thing I did was I started the momentum. I reached out and I joined a class on how to get a book published, how to write a proposal to get an agent or get a publisher. And I met a woman named Jean Hanna, who's also a healer and a teacher, but she turned out, it was a worldwide class. She was right here, 45 minutes from me. So we became fast friends. And that leads me to the point in time where I met Bill McKenna. So let's take a quick break and we'll share how that next piece happened. All right, so we're talking about how this whole thing started and what were the timeline shifts. And as I wrote it down, I realized there was an intention, a specific intention on both sides. Some action that we took that created momentum that led to a manifestation. So my friend Jean and I had formed what we called a healer circle. So what we wanted to do was bring together people locally that were like us to have these conversations. And we would share a modality, we would share an idea, we would share a technique that people could use and take with them, but no indoctrination into one thing or another. That was something we both found that we didn't like about our own industry. That a lot of the things you would learn, and I took hundreds of classes and so did she, and we learned and read, but a lot of things sort of kind of smacked of religion in a way to me. There were these very specific rules. There were things that kept you in shame a lot. You know, one of the things I didn't appreciate, and people are not going to like this, but the idea of shadow work, that it was nonstop digging into this and you had to go through this big life crisis to create healing. And in my mind, I absolutely knew that there was something, there was a way around that. There was something faster, and that it didn't have to destroy your life for your life to be good. So I knew I was looking for that. And Jean was too. And we wanted to provide people a safe place to talk about this kind of stuff. So we had this healing circle. So at the time, Gaia was relatively new, I guess. And I'm watching Gaia. And we had decided that we would maybe bring into our area speakers for this healing circle, put on maybe some classes so that people could learn even more. So I watched this Gaia episode, and there's Bill McKenna. And he was talking about this very simple process, the healing of water. And I kind of liked it, that there wasn't anything, there was no pitch, there was no, there didn't seem to be a whole modality beneath it that I had to believe in to make this thing work. And there's something about it really spoke to me. And I have never before or never since reached out to a host about anything, except for now we do because we're on interviews all the time. But I mean, not a fangirl, let's put it that way. And I thought, gosh, I really like that. And I think that would be a nice speaker for our group. And so that's at the point where Bill and I met. I reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in coming to our area and speaking? And Bill said, okay, that sounds cool. And we started to build our first event. However, some other things happened, some things that were weird. So I'd reached out to Bill, we made this plan. But for me, that summer changed everything. And here's this momentum piece again. That year, my friend Carmela, who I'd met, just a few months before, her dream was to go to Mount Shasta. And I said, why? Why? Mount Shasta's not a very nice little city. Like, the mountain's pretty and everything. And it's only an hour and a half from my house. And she said, oh my gosh, you don't know about Mount Shasta? It's all mystical and magical. And I thought, okay, come on down. You come to Oregon and I'll take you. It's in Northern California, but just close to my house. So little did I know, we went, and it was the wildest 4 days of my life. We shifted dimension. We met people that I swear do not exist on this plane. We had visitors in the night that were not visible in our hotel room. But I went as a complete skeptic because that's who I am. Like, I believe in everything and nothing all at the same time. So I'm like, people are making it up. That weird stuff happens in Mount Shasta. Well, they're not. Mount Shasta is a weird, weird place. But I'd had this experience of things rapidly shifting and changing. It's a whole story in itself. And then right on the heels of that, a month later, went to Sicily, where we had some of the very same kinds of experiences. We were moving weather, whole storms, we were moving them. We were talking to the gods in the area. We had so much fun that it was all very weird and magical. And I've been to Sicily many times before with a completely different focus. And I'd never noticed this weird, mystical, magical place that it really is. So everything started to build momentum and change. And it was showing me, okay, here's who you really are. And everybody knows it already anyway. So stop pretending. And then when we got home, I think it was the month after that, we put on our first event together. Yeah.
Well, that's that event, probably would never have happened, if I hadn't talked to Regina and gone on the show. But there was another level of resistance that I had to, it. And once that episode came out, there was a flood of emails. Turns out that show, still to this day, is one of the most popular shows on Gaia. It continues to be, like it is, like 10x more comments than we get on any other interview when we go on. It was very, very popular. And the flood of emails that people were looking for sessions or this, that, or the other thing, I was full-time employed in a high-tech business. And I remember the weekend that happened, I was up at that retreat house doing the one-on-one healings, that we were doing there. And I remember, telling my friend who runs the center, I was like, oh man, I don't know. I told everybody what to do on the interview, and now they're all, I gave it all away, nothing that you don't. And I said on the interview, you don't need me. Here's how you do it on your own. I'm not holding anything back. And then they're all contacting, looking for, either a session or me to do it or something. And I was like, no, pushing back, just like either ignoring the emails or just like, thanks for writing, you can do it. Just, and she was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You have been asking for this. You've been asking for this. You've been wanting to do this work. And it was true. I did want to do the work, but I was, how conflicted, I was like, no, I really don't want to be seen. I didn't want to be seen, and I didn't want to put myself out there. So anyway, I finally surrendered. I just surrendered. And when I surrendered, that is when Liz called. And the answer was, of course, yes, because I had already surrendered. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to allow myself to be seen and allow these, people to come to me. So, and help them. So that behind the scenes, the intention very much initially was conflicted and resistant. And right before she had contacted me, that all kind of went away. I had basically resigned and surrendered.
It's so funny. That reminds me about something, and this is a little woo-woo, but for everybody listening, what you have to understand is that there are all really internal conflicts that are going on about becoming who you really are, becoming who you intended to be before you came to the planet, I think, becoming the truth of yourself. And, it's scary a bit. I think you imagine a whole lot of things are going to happen that don't happen. You imagine that it's going to be a whole lot of, almost giving up your life. Like I imagined that if I were to become, a healer and live this life, that I would probably have to leave my family and wander the world in a turban and somehow settle at the edge of a town and read fortunes. I'm not kidding. I know that sounds crazy, but I really had that idea of what it would mean to come forward and really serve in a big way, become who I really intended to be. And there was a moment in time, and this was kind of funny, when I knew that I would end up in strange places, like the purse section at the mall at 8:30. Well, I'm not even that interested in purses, but I knew I had to go there. And I would go there, and then someone would come and ask me the question of their life. I would literally go and wait because I knew I was supposed to. And I can tell you how many weird places, how many weird stores I ended up in just standing, and then the person would show up and they would ask me this deep question about their life. And I would answer, I would give whatever information I knew, and then walk away. I'd never see that person again. It didn't matter. Like the interaction didn't matter that much to me, but it mattered immensely to them. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I just needed this answer. I've been praying about it. So I said to no one in particular, okay, I give, I'll do the work. I'll do it. But it was a negotiation because we'd lost this big business. We had to recover financially and emotionally. It was so painful. And I said, look, here's my negotiation. I'll do the work. You take care of all of that. Take care of the rest of it. Just make it, fix it so that it's all okay. There aren't any bigger ramifications. And I will go where I'm supposed to go. And I'll do whatever I'm called to do. I'll answer the question. This was my negotiation, literally to no one in particular. And I think that was the moment where the real intention happened. Oh, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do it. So when I met Bill and we put on this event, and like Bill said, he didn't have a website, he didn't have anything. So that stuff had to be created. And that was the beginning of starting to build the business part. And neither of us really knew where it was going for sure. But instantly, it's a weird thing to do with someone you just met to start building a business. Oh, let's build websites. Oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do that. Right? We put on a few events, but we just sort of fell into step with it right away. And it was later on in that year, or maybe early in the next year, where Bill had the first ideas about the Cognomovement system. And at that time, I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting, but I've got all these other tools. But interesting things started happening so rapidly with it that it got my attention. And I was in, we were both in. And then it started these daily conversations. Okay, did you try this? Okay, did you try that? Here's a success. There's the success, right? And then rapidly we started teaching people. And that's how the birth of modality was born. But each of us had to get on this journey and sort of make the absolute intention, almost like the statement, okay, I'm in. I'll go on, Regina, Bill said. I'm like, okay, I'll go where I'm called. And I did recognize after I met Bill and we started working, I'm like, oh, this is that call, isn't it? I agreed to this. Yep, you did, right? And so it happened. But I think having this very specific intention for both of us, and then doing some action steps, building the momentum. So it's not just making the intention, but it's actually literally creating movement. And those two things, I think, together shifted a whole paradigm where two people who don't have any business knowing each other, one in Oregon, one in San Diego, completely different lives, come together and create a modality so fast, that's so powerful, that it is changing the world. So let's take a quick break. And when we'll come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the magic that happened in this journey. Okay, and we're back. So we're at the place where we met up, Bill. So I called you, you accepted. And then what do you feel like happened next for you in the story?
Well, the things that happened were twofold. My surrender to okay, I'll do it, and I'll go out there and be visible. Obviously that continued on, and because of the success of the other interview on Gaia, they invited back again, and this time that, Cognomovement was actually out there and ready to get out to the world. So that was kind of a interesting timing that just came right together.
It's true. Gaia plays a really big role in this because, Regina had created her part and then she sold it to Gaia. And then you go on the interview with Gaia early on in their history. And then Cognomovement starts to take shape. And now it gets really shown to the world via Regina Meredith and Gaia. So we didn't even think about this, but as we're talking about it today, Bill and I realized that Regina and Gaia are a part of the co-creation of this modality. And again, an absolutely unknown modality. You, when you went on that show, still were not well known, except for that you had the interview before, right? So by all rights, that second interview should never have happened. Really, in terms of Gaia was bringing on people who were really well known, and that makes sense. They were trying to bring in watchers and listeners, but something spurred them to have that second interview too. And now I think the 11th, is it the 11th interview will come out, in a few months, I think. Interview or 10th or 11th, but they have been really very essential in getting this modality out to the world, getting these ideas out. I think what you and I created are different ideas about what it means to heal. So neither of us had the intention originally that we would create a modality that changes the nervous system so profoundly. That worked with the power lines in the body, that could create change from emotions, trauma, to movement issues, right? I mean, the full spectrum. It helps people with autism, and it helps people who have had a stroke, and it helps people who've had a concussion, because it's all the same system.
It's de-stressing, all of those things. We actually don't help with autism. We help with the stress. We all of these things, we naturally relax the body and de-stress it and process their traumas.
Yeah, but it is an assist to them. It is helpful to them. We're not talking about curing those things. We're talking about things that really help them be more comfortable in life. So, but it all is focused on the nervous system, and that didn't emerge until later on. As Cognomovement was being formulated, did we realize what we were accessing? So it's a whole new idea on the planet, a whole new way of managing stress in the body that creates lots of things, inflammation and illness and disease and trauma as well. So it was really surrendering, and I think this is a word Billy used, to the process. It started to shape itself, and we dug in and researched, and then the next discovery would happen, and then we dug in and researched to make sure that there was some foundation behind these ideas. But at the same time, that research just showed right up for us. It was like it became available on the planet. And as we started to discover that the nervous system really extends beyond the body, HeartMath Institute created proof of that with the hearts. And other scientists, MIT, would see the light of a thought or an emotion flashing outside of the body. So as we were finding these ways to literally change what's happening with the body, the science was showing up to support it. So it seemed very much like the timeline that shifted was a timeline in which this modality came to the planet and was of tremendous service. So the manifestation was next. After the momentum, this manifestation, and that continues. It continues and continues and continues. We put out an intention that we want next for the modality or the business that had to be created around it. And pretty soon that shows up. We continue to use the same process that we did in the beginning, First, clearing out the suffering we are experiencing ourselves, because, you know, life is life, and you get a hard feeling about something. You know, something happens and you feel like your body just wants to push back against it. We got to clear that out. We use our own work. Then we take action. We really do. And create momentum. And then that piece manifests, whether it's a skill to help create change in another area of a body or another area of business. So it's been pretty fascinating, wouldn't you say?
It's been what does the Grateful Dead say? You know, a long, strange trip.
Yeah.
It's been a long, strange trip. But, you know, the one thing I think, you know, that I feel, I know you feel it, and all the practitioners, is that it's incredibly fulfilling. I've never had such fulfillment in my life as has come from working with you, Liz, and the modality and getting out there to actually creating real change for people for things that were hopeless, absolutely hopeless for them. And now they're living a whole different life. And that's incredibly fulfilling.
Well, I'd have to say too that the struggling part, and the reason I keep bringing this up is because I know that people listening have had this where you're struggling, you're suffering a little bit because you know there's something you're supposed to do, be, know, or have, and you just can't quite get there. But I remember struggling and suffering about the idea of manifestation, about the idea of law of attraction. And, you know, I just can't get there. I can't make myself feel better about that thing because it sucks, right? And so a lot of the things that Cognomovement does are answers that we wanted to create for ourselves. And that was a big one for me. I wanted to be able to change that hard place in my body, that feeling that I have of I can't, or it's not going to happen, or it's never, you know, it's out of my reach, or whatever the problem were, right? And that's the thing that one of the things that we created is that Cognomovement, you're able to recognize the hard place. You're able to recognize where you have hard feelings, and literally you feel it in your body, or the thing that's holding you back. And we can clear that out in just a few minutes. We change the way the nervous system is functioning about that system. And it's so funny because one of our new practitioners said recently, oh, and she's Irish, oh, it works. I hate it. And I hate it because it's always me, right? And it is. Once you can recognize that it's you, you're the one in the place of suffering. You're the one that has the hard feeling that is holding the thing you want away from you. And so as we worked through these things ourselves, we created not only opening for ourselves, but opening for everyone else to create that change too. And that is one of the things I love so much about this work. I always say that for Bill and I, outside of our families, this work is the great love of our lives because it creates so much amazing stuff, right? We call it ninja shit. Behind the scenes, that's what we say. Because it feels almost like being a magician to be able to create these changes. But what I love about everything we've created, Bill, is that it is not magic. That was another thing that it had to be for me, had to be repeatable. If only I can do it because I'm psychic or intuitive or whatever, that doesn't work for you, let's say, if you don't share those abilities. I wanted to create something that it was repeatable only every time, that it was a method that made sense, that was based in reality, that could help someone change themselves or help someone else change. And I think that's the thing that we nailed, right? But it came from that real specific intention. That's what I wanted. I wanted it for me, but I wanted it for everybody else. And then we took action, momentum, created those pieces, and then the manifestations start happening where we get to be a part of miracles only every day, oftentimes multiple times a day, which was another clear intention of mine. What about you?
I wanted to just be of service at the type of level that we now are, where resolving the impossible, and that's basically, what's ended up manifesting, and of course, that is incredibly fulfilling. Like I said, based upon my life, I've just never experienced anything like it. And the other thing that I love about it is that there's now practitioners around the globe that get to experience the same thing, transform themselves, and then get the fulfillment from helping others.
I love it. So I want to say to everybody who's listening out there, if you have a dream, if there's some fire in your gut that you have something that needs to be created on this planet, but something is holding you back, set an intention. Make a promise to no one in particular. And then take one action step, just one thing. Sign up for that next class. You can become a practitioner with us if you want to. Or, put yourself out there, hang a shingle, get an office, do something that takes one step in that direction, create your momentum. And you'll find that the universe will reach out and meet you every step of the way. It'll meet you with the thing that you need next to create change. So just from our experience, we want to encourage you to go for it. All right, you guys, we have come up the end of this episode. Our time's up. So thanks for listening to our story. We hope that you found something meaningful for yourself. Thanks for sharing your story, Bill McKenna.
And thank you as well, Liz Larson.
And until next week, everybody, be safe and be well.